Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow, and welcome back to Supreme Commander Forge Alliance Forever for a 1v1 pro-level ladder cast on, of course, the Ditch Faf version. Before we get into introducing our players sporting red and blue respectively, let me direct your attention down below to the buttons. There is like, dislike, subscribe, bell, join, and super thanks, as well as the comment section. Please go down there, let's have a discussion. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into introducing our players, starting in the southwest with a red Cyberncom. Going first land, I know him as 3 1500s in a trench coat, but his name is, of course, Tex. Then we can move on to the blue player rocking an Aeon com, so best faction. He is, of course, the biggest, baddest motherfucker around. His name is Swkoll, and he is here to take names and represent the Aeon, and I am more than happy to have him in my corner as we rock out to this map. So, the Ditch, let's talk about it. There's a fuck ton of reclaim, 437,700 reclaim on this map. These players are not going to be hurting for getting their economies online. We're probably going to see a lot, and I mean a lot, of early aggression out from these players. I'm talking T1 bombers to the extreme. These players are probably going to be fighting for every bit of territory they can, be it land, air, or sea. They will be fighting over it, and this is a particularly long one, so make sure you have a snack, and a drink available, as I am, for a long streak running now, unable to speak. Of course, it's going to be hard to keep up with even one of these players, so we're going to miss a few things, but hopefully it will be enjoyable nonetheless. Since it's so long, I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to speed up the early game just a little bit so we can get these players punching each other in the face all that little bit faster, and of course have a lot of fun with it. So they're going to be expanding. I'm guessing we're going to see a lot of transports for expansion. Mass extractors are very far away from each other, and we already have Swkoll starting out with some T1 bombers. In fact, let's go ahead and redo that. We're just going to watch the first T1 bomber as it rolls in here and see if it can manage to pick up any glory for the Aeon. We will keep our mouse hovered over the bomber specifically so we can see exactly how much kills it gets. Starts off with a singular T1 engineer, is going to drop another bomb and get another T1 engineer, is getting all of the value so far. I don't see any sort of response out yet from Tex. He doesn't quite have any interceptors on the field. He has 3 air factories, so he will have interceptors. It's just a question of when. The other bomber comes in, gets a kill or 2 on some engineers, and goes down. And now we're seeing bombers start being produced by Tex. I am expecting to see so many T1 bombers. I've seen high-level games on maps like this before, and T1 bombers are used so aggressively constantly. I wouldn't be surprised if we see like 20, 30 T1 bombers at any point, and during this, what I'm going to define as the early game. That first bomber managing to get 3 kills, about to pick up a 4th onto an engineer that's in the water trying to build a naval factory. That's going to be huge, as it's going to get its first rank of veterancy, be able to regenerate some of that health and have just in general more HP. Of course, going to be very annoying for Tex, as he's going to have to re-queue up all those naval factories. Speaking of naval factories, none queued up yet for Swkoll, but he is playing Aeon, so maybe he feels a little bit less need for it, as he does have that early access to hover units. And he now has transports heading out to his 2 4-mex expansions to the northwest and south of his base. As in the air, we're seeing this bomber now at 5 kills, going to possibly be able to pick up another one. It sees a transport, could just chase the transport down and get a lovely bomb off on wherever it drops. Instead, going to continue to pick up engineers, going to stop this one that was trying to expand to that 4-mex expansion to the north of Texas base. And Swkoll is just continuing his reign of terror with the T1 bombers. Speaking of T1 bombers, though, over here on the eastern side, I was talking about chasing transports with T1 bombers, and that is exactly what this Zeus has done for Tex, killing off all of the engineers and any other units that were accompanying the T1 transport there out from Swkoll. That's going to really slow down his expansion to the south. Whereas to the north, he does have another bomber, and he is probably going to get a very juicy bomb onto 4 engineers, maybe even more. But there's 2 factories set up. You're not really going to shut all of this down. The engineers start moving, and it looks as though he's only going to get 2 with that bomb. Although there's only 4 more engineers, so he could get a lot more when he's ready. And, of course, everything going quite according to plan for both of these players. Both of them expecting to have some of their expansion efforts denied, and both of them expecting to get some of that same denial down onto their opponent. I would say Tex has definitely the better handle on air right now. Currently only 3 air factories for Swkoll, whereas Tex is sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He is going air. There is going air, and then there's going air, and he is going air. As this T1 bomber that got those 6 kills on that transport earlier, going to be able to pick up a couple more, which is just really slowing down Swkoll down here to the south. But on the other hand, Swkoll has kind of stopped both of the expansions for Tex and has managed to get a lot of value out of his T1 bombers so far. So going to be interesting to see how this affects the game moving forward. There's going to be a Seeker already built over here. It's being repaired just in case that bomber had the idea to kill it while it was on somewhat low HP. And these players continuing to duke it out. A transport coming out from Swkoll trying to steal away this 4-mex expansion. So that is going to be interesting. Water is so, ever so delicious, as that's a lot of T1 bombers. Both sides have a few. 12 for Swkoll, whereas Tex is sitting on 15. I have no chance of catching all of the juicy bombs. Seems as though this expanding engineer is slated for death, as this interceptor is not gonna... 5 vet interceptor with 8 kills. But that's going to be another dead engineer. Over here, this drop is starting to build factories, so it does seem as though Swkoll is very, very keen on setting himself up a outpost on his opponent's territory, because I don't think anybody would argue this area is generally supposed to go to Tex. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for him, because of course the main base can produce some T1 spam to try and fight this, and now we have a hunter coming out from some forward factories built on the front for Tex. There's some engineers coming in, seemingly going to try and get off the reclaim orders, or nope, just going to go for the T1 point defense, and it's going to build very quickly. Both of these players already over 20,000 reclaim. It is not even 10 minutes yet, and their actual economies, they aren't great, but they have enough reclaim to afford pretty much anything they would want at this given time. So they're just going to continue doing their good old work. This T1 PD is going to start killing off these factories in very quick succession, although I'm pretty sure T1 bombers and the occasional fervor coming out of the factory and dropping a shot down on to that will kill off the PD before it completely secures the area, but maybe not with the combined efforts of the air from Tex and just sort of playing defensively. He is going to probably be able to shut this down with just that T1 PD, assuming not too many fervors get out of the factories, and with the T1 bombers, he can kind of stop production of any unit he so feels like. That fervor is going to get a shot off. The PD will eventually get a rank of vet once it kills off one of these factories, really separating its targeting onto all of these different units coming out has slowed it down quite a bit. And of course, it's going to be able to get the damage down. That is a very almost dead point defense, but does get a rank of veterancy, which gives it about another artillery shot worth of damage to soak up. And of course, that shut down the expansion from Swkoll. Meanwhile, on the northern side, Tex is sitting on an ungodly amount of T1 bombers this early. 42 T1 bombers. I think that's enough to one-pass a comm. How much damage does each of these bombers do? Let's see. It does 50 damage. 40 times 50 is I shouldn't be doing this math. It seems like it might be enough to one-shot a comm. Somebody in the comments can tell me. You all have access to calculators and math right now. I could do 40 times 50 in my head, but it would take a second, so I'm not going to. The bombers continuing to wreak their havoc on everything over here. Swkoll still denying expansion up here with just a handful of T1 bombers that just aren't being shot down by the interceptors of Tex. And he's still managed to stop any major expansion efforts to the north for Tex. Tex is still somewhat struggling down here, but he's managed to get up enough factories to make it a non-issue. And in the Navy, there's a lot of factories built up for Swkoll now, and I would think that he is going to be thinking about trying to shut out Tex from the Navy in relatively short time period. The earlier you can shut your opponent out of the Navy, the better it will feel. As over here, a bunch of T1 bombers coming in to take out the anti-air in the area. And he has enough bombers that he's just willing to sacrifice all of these T1, or he's willing to sacrifice a few for the good of many. As he has, of course, how many T1 bombers on screen? 43. Overall T1 bomber count, 76. That is definitely enough to one-pass a comm, and I know that for a fact. Target priority NGs, which is probably pretty good. Gonna kill off a ton of NGs with these T1 bombers. The pandemonium of these T1 bombers is not to be understated, as currently there is just an overwhelming presence of air out for Tex, and he is just absolutely demolishing the expansion over there for Swkoll. Whereas Swkoll, yet again, he just doesn't have the same presence in the air. He's still sitting on 3 air factories. He has 4 more, 7 air factories. Has T2 air, is going T3 air very quickly. Do we have anything similar coming out from Swkoll? He's T2, he's already T3 air. 12 minutes on top of all of the expansion. I know everybody's like, you can get T3 air in 7 minutes. Well, can you do it while also having a bunch of naval forces and land forces and fighting off expansions and denying things with T1 bombers? No, you can't, because you aren't a 2000. Most likely, statistically speaking, most of you are closer to 300 than you are to 2000. As currently, T1 bombers being used very aggressively by Tex. Unfortunately, I think this was a little bit of a bad trade. He's going to be dropping a ton of T1 bombers worth of reclaim on the field. Although, yet again, it doesn't matter. Speaking of reclaim, both players are reaching, like, they're closer to 100,000 reclaim than 0. Pretty ridiculous, as Swkoll has taken the economic lead as he's been able to expand a little bit more freely, a little bit easier access for his engineers to get to those mass extractors, so he is feeling the benefits of that, whereas Swkoll has managed to get significantly more reclaim, and overall, or no, Tex has managed to get significantly more reclaim, so overall, Tex is ahead on total mass generation, which is very, very interesting to see here at 13 to 14 minutes. T1 bomber is currently harassing mass extractors and about to kill off 2 engineers. That T1 bomber gets a rank of veterancy. A very happy bomber, and now is about to be a very dead bomber, as about 1,000 interceptors are coming into the area to just wipe it off the map. Well, not really off the map. Wipe it out of the skies. A drop of a bunch of Mantis over here, slated for death, as a much larger group of T1 and T2 forces is coming over here. That transport probably also going to meet the same demise. Luckily, the transport might tank up a little bit of damage, but the Blaze coming in, going to be able to clean this up pretty easily. Speaking of the Blaze, Swkoll has T2 land over here on this southern front, and that is his HQ. T2 land has also been achieved for Tex, I believe. Yep, he's built his T2 HQ in his main base. Gonna have to see if that forward T2 HQ is going to leave Swkoll vulnerable on the land front. In the Navy, it does seem as though Swkoll's thrown a little bit more mass into his Navy and is currently sitting on a ridiculously higher... He's he has over 100 mass a second more than Tex right now. Tex is quickly catching up, as I'm assuming T3 mexes are finishing up in mass right now for him. But that small little advantage there of having 100 mass a second over your opponent is huge. Not quite so huge with all of the reclaim on the map, admittedly, but very, very interesting to see that development, even if it was very temporary. Nope, still 100 mass a second ahead. That does add up. While reclaim can fix a lot of things, it is very difficult to use reclaim to fix a mass generation differential that big. Of course, a bunch of T1 bombers over here going down to like 4 or 5 interceptors, which is going to be very unfortunate. Radar being thrown up underneath this. These T1 interceptors going to be able to do quite a little bit. Conservators conserving their selves and the skies by shooting down all of the Zeuses. The god of lightning and storms not having the greatest time here, although there are many of him, and he is going to... most of these do survive, but those conservators getting 5 ranks of veterancy, feeling very good as an ASF shows up, that Gemini, to just absolutely destroy the conservators' day. As over here to the middle, large naval engagement popping off, frigates out from Swkoll, those beacon classes, along with the occasional shard, which is not super useful in the naval fights, are going to be used to great effect as they are starting to get into the naval production of techs and are going to be able to kill off some factories. A pause happening. Also, I want to point out at the front at the start of this match, I just wanted a relaxing a relaxing fun game, and Swkoll said yes, this is a relaxing fun game for Swkoll, I'm sure. As over here to the north, T1 bombers being used to stop any further expansion to the north for Swkoll. I don't know if I say Swkoll's name right, but that's the only way it's the only way that makes sense to me. Okay. As we start to shape ourselves into the mid game. T3 on the field now for both Tex and Swkoll. Nuke launcher queued up now for Tex. Gonna have to see if that is significant and see if Swkoll notices it in time to get up anti-nuke. Of course, you cannot put anti-nuke everywhere on the map, so any of these large bases for Swkoll could be under threat. And that is a bit of a difficult proposition. Conservators over here killing off many Zeuses, but Zeuses killing off many expansion efforts for Swkoll. As Tex is continuing to fight it out. The naval engagements still going in the favor of Swkoll. We haven't seen any major developments, I would say. Nobody has managed to get a major victory on any flank or front right now. So we're still kind of in a holding pattern. There are constant fights breaking out across the map. We now have the fact that the Aeon can hover coming into play. There's some naval production starting to be thrown up down here in this southern kind of expansion of the water. It's not really... this entire thing is one lake, so I can't really call it the southern lake. The southern bulbous portion of the lake. As this middle island here has also been grabbed by Tex. Gonna have to see if that is significant at all. Could see some tactical missile launcher shenanigans being thrown into the main base of Tex, and Swkoll would be very happy to do so, although I'm not sure if that is on his mind or not. A bunch of Wagners over here to the north starting to push their way into one of these expansions for Swkoll, and Wagners have those very high alpha shots, and they also have a secondary weapon. I believe it's kind of like a small little rocket launcher. Doesn't do very much, but any DPS is going to be appreciated by any land unit. As yeah, no, I don't think there's any rocket launcher. I do think it's just that main cannon. It's just like there's trails behind it that look weird. Or maybe I'm wrong on that front and it has 2 weapons. Doesn't really matter, as they're going to get in here and start dealing some significant damage to the expansion. There's T1 PD being thrown up, although I don't think it'll be too terribly effective at stopping the goal of this, which is to get rid of some of that mass generation. Swkoll still massively ahead on mass generation and is starting to show as he's over 10,000 mass total generation this game ahead of Tex. And Tex, he's having a bit of a traffic jam here. Not that Swkoll hasn't been having troubles with his pathing, There are, of course, Vespers now in the water, which shows Swkoll has T2 air. And there are now Strat Bombers out onto the field for Tex. 3 to be precise. Gonna have to see if they can achieve anything. These Wagners have now spread out, trying to go for different mass extractor points. There are now gunships and T1 bombers on the way to deal with this. A few mass extractors are gonna go down, but nothing significant for the economy of Swkoll. The Strat Bombers are coming in. These could deal some sustained damage, could take out some of these T3 mass extractors that have been built in the southern side. Takes 2 bombs from the Revenant to kill off each of these. We'll have to see if there are enough ASF in the air right now. It does seem as though Tex has a strong handle on the air game as of the moment. And no, in fact, it takes 3 bombs from the Revenant. I swear, one of the Strat Bombers only takes 2 bombs. Which one is it? Answers in the comments. A lot of engineers going down with that one, although not anything significant. Those T3 mass extractors staying alive is going to be huge for Swkoll. He just has to rebuild the mass storage, and those are yet again back up to full efficiency. Of course, they're going to be a little bit bruised, and you never really like having a hurt mass extractor, but better than not having one at all. As down here, Exodus class along with beacons being swarmed by tridents. The trident's going to slowly take a bit more damage than they are built to sustain, and it does seem as though that this is going to be thinned out relatively quickly by Swkoll with very few losses each time that Exodus fires, and these depth charges out from the Exodus going to deal a lot of damage. Although the Tridents are going to force this back, they are going to get a few kills on the beacons, but that Exodus is nowhere near under any kind of threat. Infinity class cruisers also out onto the field could be a little bit of a danger for Swkoll. The nuke launcher is completed and is heavily assisted as it starts building its first missile. And Swkoll does not have an anti-nuke. He's trying to build his own nuke launcher. Does he know about the opposition's nuke launcher? He does not know. He hasn't even seen it building just yet. So he is in the blind and in the dark right now. But if it comes down to a nuclear arms race right now, I'm pretty sure Tex wins. And that could be huge. We'll have to keep an eye on that, of course. Is over here to the middle. The T2 units out from Swkoll proving their value. Their increased range is starting to get some attritional damage that Tex is just going to have to tank up and deal with. Vesper still in the water over here, killing any reinforcing units that come out. There's just no real torpedo threat to kill it off. Probably best strategy would be to get out a couple of torpedo bombers to clean up stuff like that. As to the north, Tex has managed to expand up here, and he's starting to look a lot better. He's caught up in total mass generation, but is still behind in total mass accrued this entire game. But not by a significant margin. 10,000 mass when you're talking about 300,000 apiece is very little. Both players have reclaimed over 100,000 mass. It's starting to get to the point where these players are getting close to have reclaimed a Paragon. Only about 100,000 mass to go before they've reclaimed the cost of a Paragon. Less for Tex. As we meander our way towards the 25-minute mark, the economy is 400 mass a second for Tex, 400 mass a second for Swkoll, or at least they are both at 399, pretty much at 400. So right now, it is the time of plenty. Both players have the ability to build pretty much anything they could want. Swkoll has built an anti-nuke, but is he assisting it? Does Swkoll know of the real and present danger of that nuke launcher? No, he does not. And I believe Tex has spotted the nuke launcher. Yep, Tex flies over and spots it right there. How far along is his nuke? It is past the halfway point. So right now, Swkoll needs to really reprioritize assisting the anti-nuke. Otherwise, he is going to be in for a world of pain. As it's only about 20% loaded, and that assisted nuke will get off its fire first if that anti-nuke is unassisted. As I said, keep an eye on it. Down here to the south, it seems as though this was cleaned up by all of the hover. And in the central area, it seems as though Swkoll is starting to gain territory once again onto Tex, who is just taking constant attritional damage. Vesper 7 kills, Vesper 6 kills, constantly just killing off this stuff, and he's really not investing anymore in the Navy as he's starting to produce bricks to send across the waves or underneath the waves towards his opponent. To the south, T3 land not quite developed yet for Swkoll. As Tex continues his tirade of land incursions using those amphibious units to the best of their ability, and working on his nuke launcher, no longer assisting the nuke launcher, instead assisting the SMD. I think this was a game of nuclear chicken, and I don't know if Tex... I think Tex flinched. He's not assisted. If he continues to assist that nuke, I think the nuke lands. Even with the switched... Oh, even with the switched focus to anti-nuke for Swkoll, I think that right now, if he assists that nuke with everything he has, he wins the nuclear arms race. Of course, he didn't scout the nuke launcher for a little while, and maybe he was thinking, well, he has an anti and a nuke launcher. I only have a nuke launcher. Maybe he wins this. And has decided that he needs the anti-nuke. He's taking the safer option, not putting all of his money on black or red here. As Wagners begin to make their way into the main base of Swkoll. Really doesn't have a great response for this, other than the fact that he has a bunch of gunships and T1 bombers. Never mind, he has a fine response. That shouldn't get too much done. Maybe kill off these landed charioteers, which he is still producing in mass, most of them idle. Although it's always nice to have a transport laying around for when you need it. Can't transport anything too big, though. A bunch of Wagners over here starting to push their way into the land production of Swkoll. There are a bunch of Oblivions online, 4 of them to be precise, and there's also some T2 artillery. A strategic launch has been detected out from that Liberator nuke launcher for Tex. Is Swkoll going to be able to build his anti-nuke in time? The Wagner's starting to produce a little bit of an issue, as I'm pretty sure Swkoll's going to have to spend a lot of mass really quickly onto PD. Is this going to be a death for Swkoll? Is this going to be it? He is standing next to that anti-nuke. He is committing to the idea that this anti-nuke loads or he dies. Where is the nuclear missile? Is most assuredly incoming, I would imagine. Is he going to survive this nuclear hellfire? And he is! As the anti-nuke launches and protects Swkoll to live another day. Swkoll thanking his lucky stars that he managed to load that in time. And he now has his own nuke to fire back. Has Tex managed to load his anti-nuke? It is going to load by the time the nuke travels across the map. What is the range on that anti-nuke? Is built rather far back into his base. About right there. We'll have to see if there is a possibility of an edge nuke. You could definitely get the T3 land HQ if that's something you're worried about. Although maybe nuking one of these 4 mechs expansions would be a better idea. Strategic launch detected. Is that within the range of the anti-nuke? I don't believe it is. I think Tex is about to eat a nuke. Large land assault down here to the south for Swkoll. Starting to make progress. Is going to be able to shut down some of these T3 mass extractors, as I don't believe the bricks stop this in time. I believe that the bricks do stop it, but I believe that Swkoll will be able to focus down those mass extractors before the blazes and auroras get fully cleaned up, or at least 1 or 2 of them. The nuke flies across the map. Let's see if it manages to land or if it will be shot down. As nuclear hellfire continues to be on the forefront of both of these players' brains, and it does not get shot down. And that's going to be a little bit brutal for Tex. I'm sure he's a bit unhappy with that turn of events. Launches his own nuke. Doesn't manage to quite hit the mark, doesn't manage to quite fire in time. And then loses 2 mass extractors and his T3 land HQ to a counter nuke that was used as an edge nuke, which is going to be very unfortunate for Tex. Bricks over here to the western side, but there is the western side of this northern expansion, I mean, but I fucking stun-locked myself. I think there's enough to hold this here. Maybe not, though. I mean, there is a decent number of Oblivions. There's also artillery, which Swkoll has been investing quite a little bit into this static artillery. These bricks gonna force their way into the defensive lines of Swkoll. And it seems as though they might be able to clean it up and get some real value down. Could maybe even target that anti-nuke so that your next nuke launch can definitely hit something of value this entire expansion. He is going to slowly clean up all of the point defenses. Some gunships starting to come in. If he cleans up the point defenses in time, he could definitely get that anti-nuke. Does he focus down the anti-nuke? Not quite yet. It's starting to get a little bit dicey. He has 4 bricks, and it's going to be very quickly down to 2 as Harbingers show up onto the field. That little fire base has been dealt with, but the anti-nuke stays intact kind of critically. And oh my word, Navy supremacy out from Swkoll. He's managed to hold on to all of the water, and that's going to be very fortunate for him. We could see something like him going for T3 Navy, getting out some Torrent classes, really making Tex's life hell. Although Tex does have a lot of air forces, could just go for the strategy of torpedo bombers, or even hell, at this point, strat bombers with the economies these players have for killing off a Navy. Does in fact have a decent number of strat bombers coming in right now, or I think a bombing run. I think it might be going for those cruisers. Here they come in, those Revenants dropping their large payloads down onto the Infinity classes. One goes down with the first pass, second one left badly wounded, I would imagine, and probably will go down with the next ensuing volley. Of course, gonna lose some strat bombers here, and strat bombers are not cheap. So, is going to be a trade. Of course, the trade is on his friendly territory, or maybe not with all of these engineers in the water now for Swkoll. Was going to say it's friendly territory so you can reclaim the wrecks of the strat bombers, but one of them has already been reclaimed, and more to follow. What are your orders? Are you just on an attack move? What are you doing? Hello? Okay, well, I don't have time to look at that, as bricks are mounting in various points up here to the north. Could be another assault pending. Anything spicy going on? Monkey Lord now on the way for Tex. Do we have anything else coming from him? And a Soul Ripper at the same time. Do we have any other experimentals being produced over here, Swkoll? Do you have like a GC or a Czar on the way for Swkoll? Swkoll's been having a bit of trouble with air this game. He's never quite had the air advantage, I feel. Although at the T3 phase, you can definitely swing air a lot easier, I feel, than at the T1 phase. You can get a lot of ASF built very quickly, especially on these economies that these players have, if you just manage to build enough air factories and give them just the tiniest bit of assistance. Make each one of them faster. Critically, though, something I'm noticing, anti-nukes for there is no team. For Tex, he only has one in the main base. He has the one. The one that doesn't even really fully cover his main base. He can lose some mass extractors and some units with an edge nuke. And meanwhile, he doesn't have any at these 4-mex expansions, and he does have a lot invested into these. Swkoll has anti-nukes on both of his 4-mex expansions, so he's sitting pretty in that sense. He is very difficult to nuke at the moment. The Monkey Lord has been completed. The Soul Ripper soon to follow. Tech's gonna have a significant force to be reckoned with, although a Czar can deal with the Monkey Lord if used properly. As we reach the 30-minute mark, let's look at those reclaim numbers. That's ridiculous. 200,000 for both players, but we are a mere 10,000 mass reclaim away from Tex having reclaimed the cost of a Paragon. And overall mass generation right now, nearing 700,000 for both players. Strategic launch detected. It's going down here to these 4-mex expansions, something I just pointed out about the anti-nukes. And that is going to be 4 T3 mexes going down. Going to be very unfortunate. Tex finishes off the Soul Ripper and is now in a position to really make a large experimental assault attacking with the Monkey Lord in the south and the Soul Ripper in the north could be a huge strategy. He also has bricks scattered across the map that can assist either experimental as that nuke comes in for a glorious landing. What is this, the third nuke launch to this game? T3 now on the way for Tex. He already has stealth. Speaking of upgrades, we have heavy shield, and T3 finished up for Swkoll, so he is a very beefy comm, sitting there with his... What was his shield on? Why you have no shield number? Where's my shield number going? Options, very quickly. Interface. Where is it? Where is it? I don't know. Well, that's very annoying. Do I have it for the Tsar? Well, maybe I will in a second. As I have it for this shield. Okay, so it's just the commander shield that I don't have for. I can see that 18,000 HP on that Radiance T3 shield for Swkoll. As his anti-nuke is under threat, does seem as though that's what the bug is focused on. And that anti-nuke going down will just spell disaster for this area. We're going to see 4 mexes most likely for Swkoll going down. His Air Force over here. I can see the shield on that too. Why can't I see the shield on the comm? That's a bit strange. As the Tsar, with his 30,000 health shield, is meandering its way down to the south towards the Monkey Lord, in fact. And all of the air forces are tied up in the north. It'll take a little while for any air forces to respond to that Tsar if it does decide to go south and deal with that Monkey Lord. As far... Wow! That's a lot of engineers making landfall for Swkoll. Strategic launch detected. 4th nuke of the game going up here. And these players, only 1 nuke so far, failing to hit its target. Of course, Tex with the unfortunate first nuke not being quite as successful as he had hoped and dreamed it would be. As Brick's streaming to the north, seeming though he might want to attack this right after the nuke lands, and if he does manage to get an attack here and maybe get a stronghold, he could really box in Swkoll, who has been kind of getting a lot of value out of having naval control. There's a ton of reclaim here that he's not able to get. He's unable to spend reclaim, honestly. He's having trouble spending mass. GC now being produced by Swkoll. The Tsar has come down to the south and is starting to work on the Monkey Lord. Are the ASF of Tex going to respond? Not just yet. Maybe he hasn't noticed yet. There is so much going on at any given time. These players have so much to deal with, but the Tsar gonna be able to pick up the Monkey Lord, and that's gonna be so brutal for Tex. It looked like he might have had a very strong position with the Monkey Lord and Soul Ripper finishing in quick succession, but not quite able to make it happen. That Monkey Lord's gonna die, and it's gonna be in prime area to be reclaimed by Swkoll. Although I'm sure that he wishes he could spend reclaim a little bit better right now. Needs more build power. And probably just more power in general. 8,000 extra power. He is spending all of his mass, but not doing very much reclaim whatsoever. As we look at the reclaim numbers, he's caught up. Tex has officially reclaimed an entire Paragon. And we settle in for what seemingly is going to be a long game, as we are 36 minutes in and no closer to finding our victor. In fact, we're probably further away than we were 20 minutes ago. As both of these players just have colossal, titanic economies behind them. Swkoll has built a experimental. I'm guessing that is the GC. Probably wants to start thinking about standoff technology. Both of these players will most likely want to do so. Cloaking finishes up for Tex, making that comm just that little bit harder to find. As the Soul Ripper comes down to the south, and the Tsar, unfortunately, going to be shot down by the massive air force of Tex. Maybe we can get a bit of a very good trade for Swkoll, but Swkoll is just outnumbered here and is going to end up taking an air fight where he's going to lose everything and barely even dent the air force of Tex. Another nuke launched, this time heading over to this 4-mex expansion, which means that Swkoll is going to continue to do this nuclear attrition with his 5th nuke, or overall in the game, the 5th nuke. The Soul Ripper could do a very similar play to what it did last time and kill off the anti-nuke, maybe. Come in and snipe that off, allow Tex to use another nuke on an expansion. He has a nuke loaded, so it would not be a bad strategy out from the Red Cybran, as this naval advantage has not proven itself very effective for Swkoll. He has not been able to use it in any kind of aggressive manner to take out any kind of, to deal any kind of sustained damage. It's just kind of been a defensive option, as he's had cruisers and attack boats alike being used in a defensive manner. Soul Ripper now coming into the main base. I was talking about using the Soul Ripper to kill off this anti-nuke, but if you can get the main base anti-nuke, that would be huge. Although it'll just be a mass dump if you can't manage to get the anti-nuke. It's down already to 54,000 HP. There's a decent number of SAMs in the base, and there's a lot of shields to chew through. More Transcenders being built at every second. 29,000. This shield now being assisted as it takes a bunch of damage. And I think the Soul Ripper, yeah, it's just going to go down. It's going to be a mass gift out from Tex. He's just going to drop a experimental wreck right in the middle of the base of Swkoll. And I'm sure Swkoll will take that up and happily throw it into something else, as I'm assuming he's finally figured a way to spend all of his mass. Tex, on the other hand, unable to spend all of his mass. Of course, he is sitting on 200 more mass a second than Swkoll, so not too critically horrible that he can't spend it all. Still spending more than enough. Just goes to show you there is so much going on, and these players have gotten economies that are so unwieldy that it's difficult to spend your mass. You need so much build power and just so much normal power generation, because you need to be able to spend it without power stalling. Does Swkoll doesn't have an E-storage. Interesting. And Tex has like a million E-storages. How many E-storages you got, Tex? E-storage, more than meets the eye. E-storage, robots in disguise. 13 E-storage. Probably could have just done that using math, but who cares about math? GC here in the middle, gonna try and just walk straight across the Navy. There's a lot of bricks here. Enough bricks to kill a GC. And enough bricks to kill Vespers, as it would apparently mean, as we can apparently see here. The bricks have very pitiful torpedo damage, but when you have, you know, 29 in area, it's still more torpedo damage than is necessary to kill off T2 units. As it seems that Tex is going to try and do the same thing that Swkoll is. He's going to try and get bricks up onto the mainland and towards the main base of Swkoll. With laser cloaking and T3 done, Tex is moving his comm. He's heading north. I think he's just trying to get somewhere stealthy, or maybe he's looking to go over here and wreak some havoc with that cloak laser comm. But the second you reveal the cloak laser comm is the second that it becomes a target. And it is a very scary world to be anywhere close to your opponent on this map, because their air production can punish you so hard. Mercies could be a big deal. Strategic launch detected this time from Swkoll. No idea where it's going. It's going for the naval production, trying to shut down Swkoll's naval production. Did I just call him Swkoll again? That's from Tex. I just got Swkoll on my mind, apparently. He's Aeon, so he's better. He comes higher in the priority list for stuff. And that nuke's gonna land, gonna get some beautiful, beautiful coverage. As it's going to blow up these naval factories, which have been so useful for Swkoll throughout this game. Kaboom! And that's going to be a very dead naval production center. As a bunch of bricks now traversing the waters, circumnavigating the map to make their way over towards the main base of Swkoll. Tech's going to be very happy with the progress his bricks are making, killing off a lot of the naval forces, and with that nuke, really killing off the possibility of a Texas comm get shot. No, that bomber didn't fire at Texas. E-1 bomber is still just flying around everywhere. For both sides. It's a little ridiculous. Down here to the southeast, large land assault forming for Swkoll. Mostly T2 still, not a huge overabundance of T3 units, although the occasional sniper bot and Harbinger will not go unappreciated. Large air fight now taking place. I think Swkoll is going to lose yet another air fight. He's just not able to keep up with the air production that Tex has thrown together. The GC coming in, he was trying to protect the GC, but the GC is just going to come in and die to the overwhelming number of whalers that are starting to be produced in combination with T1 bombers. Is going to be able to kill off some build power that was working on a megalith. Maybe even kill off the megalith, although with it dying right there, that's prime reclaim real estate to just throw into a megalith, and a Soul Ripper has finished up now. Vortex. Emissary finishing up for Swkoll. What's the range on the Emissary? Ooh, that's actually quite unfortunate. I don't know if Swkoll checked this beforehand, but the Emissary, the only real thing it can hit is right here. Can't hit the main base. Can't even hit anything of note except for some T3 land production over here. Swkoll probably going to be kicking himself once he realizes that. At this point would have been better to build multiple, turn all of the mass of that, which is how much mass? It costs 73,000 mass. How many nuke launchers can you build for that? 73,000 divided by 15,000. That is going to be, just do 75 divided by 15. 4? Almost 5? 4, almost 5 nuke launchers. Imagine 4 or 5 nuke launchers on the field right now. There's only 4 anti-nuke loaded. It's of course pretty expensive to load those, but Swkoll has been having struggles spending all of his mass so far. As the bricks get into the main base, and they're going to start threatening the power grid of Swkoll, and if this goes down, that could be devastating. As the bricks assault this position in large groups, very spread out so the Oblivions can't get their AoE damage. And of course going to start slowly killing off more and more power generators. A first T3 power generator about to go down. Another to follow. Some of these T2 power generators that were built in a line for Swkoll, probably going to be kicking himself for that as they go volatile and kill each other. And a line of them goes down very quickly. Another T3 P-Gen going down. This is a horrible damage to the power grid of Swkoll, who I am sure is not caring whatsoever because he overbuilt power by a lot. Ah, Swkoll. Never change. He's built some E-storage, everybody. He's built some E-storage. He has a buffer. Oh, they're trying to kill the Emissary, although 7,000 health is a bit much for 2 bricks to deal with. He's going to bring it down to about half HP. And is going to continue to fire another day, although the only real value you can get is these mass extractors, as I mentioned earlier. In fact, may have been better if it killed off the Emissary, because he could have reclaimed it and thrown it into something more game-indie, such as a Salvation. Speaking of Salvation, surprised we haven't seen that or a Scathis started just yet. Maybe that's just my noob brain talking, but I feel like we're in that range where your economies can be just thrown directly into game enders, and it'd be very difficult for you to die. Especially for Tex, who has had such an oppressive air advantage and now has a bunch of experimentals on the field to protect himself. Between Soul Rippers, a Monkey Lord, and some bricks are down here to stop this assault coming out from Swkoll. The Calm of Tex, even a pretty decent anti-land force with that cloak and laser. Another Tsar on the way, being built by about 5 T3 engineers. It will build, not necessarily quickly, but it will build. As these players were 46 minutes in, they're bound to be feeling the effects of such a long game. They're going to be slowing down. They're going to be having issues. Of course, a slowed down Tex or a slowed down Swkoll is still vastly faster than most of us. But they're going to start slipping on small things. You see it at every level of play. When you start reaching that 50-minute mark, you start forgetting to do little things, and they add up quickly. Like, for example, you start forgetting to launch nukes that you have loaded. Although this time there is an anti-nuke, so I guess he has a pretty good reason. Is there an anti-nuke up here? Doesn't seem to be. You could get rid of some of this T3 production, or these 4 T3 mexes, although I'm not sure how significant those mexes are. Large brick assault coming on over here. That large assault out from Swkoll, not getting too much done. Strategic launch detected. Where is that going? Not sure. It's out from Swkoll. Must be going to something significant. The Soul Ripper came in over here and killed off the anti-nuke, and that nuke is going to serve a double purpose. It's going to kill off the wreck of the Soul Ripper. Going to be huge. And now a nuke going over here. These lovebirds trading. What was the line from the campaign? Looks like the lovebirds are nuking each other. As the nuclear weaponry being used to mutually destroy each other's 4-mex expansions, although the bricks up here getting huge value as they're shutting down the other 4-mex expansion for Swkoll, and Swkoll is going to take a huge economic hit. He just fell down from 400 to 300 mass a second. He's over 200 mass a second behind his opposition. Overall reclaim, though, he's over 100,000 reclaim ahead of his opposition, so I guess you win some, you lose some, as both these players at 1.3 million-ish mass accrued. Lots of air factories now going up for Swkoll. And T3 gens. Bricks starting to assault through the middle again, along with a megalith in tow. That could be a huge play. The megalith will be a little bit more difficult to deal with than the 30 or so bricks that were there earlier. And of course, it's going to have brick support this time. Monkey Lord down here on 1 veterancy, not trying to use that aggressively, is Tex until just now. And it's starting to slowly feel like, despite Swkoll being in a very strong position for the majority of this game, it's starting to feel like he's falling apart at the seams. I was talking about slowing down, forgetting to do things, working slower, and not quite doing the things you need to do to close out a game. It seems as though Swkoll has slowed down a little bit more than Tex, who is still trying to keep the pressure up, still constantly sending out groups of bricks, still constantly focusing on the airplay, trying to make sure he never falls behind in overall ASF count, and building all of these experimentals. For Swkoll, he has still a very good economy. It just does not seem that he has quite as many units, quite as many aggressive things going on at any given time. His base is a fortress that is going to be difficult to siege. He does have a Tsar in the air now, but he's about to lose all of his air force as he's just completed a Tsar. His air force is going to fight over a battery of SAMs, although there might just be enough of an advantage for Tex that it won't matter. As Swkoll is going to try and abuse the fact that all these SAMs are here. Unsuccessfully. The megalith getting shot down by a bunch of Vespers that have all of a sudden held fire. What? What? Why have the Vespers quit? Vespers, what you doing? Do they not know that the megalith? No, they know the megalith is. These Vespers are conscientious objectors. They've decided they don't want to participate in war. Nuke out from the Swkoll, heading down here to the south, but there's an anti-nuke in play, so that's going to get shot down. I'm pretty sure we've just passed the double digits of nukes. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it feels like it. Even better to just nuke all these bricks. Emissary not able to get the value that the Swkoll probably wanted it out of it. It's killed 30 units and 15,000 mass worth of stuff, whereas I'm sure there's an experimental in the field right now for Swkoll, which costs infinitely less. Well, not infinitely, but costs much, much less, and has gotten much better results. Nuke launched over here to the middle. That nuke, of course, down there to the south was shot down, and is going to take out these anti-air batteries, which I guess techs realize, yeah, that's a bit of an issue. Of course, Swkoll can probably just rebuild those if he so wants to. And Swkoll's, of course, been building up quite the battery of air factories, which I'm sure he will very soon want to use to devastating effect to get air control and use these Tsars he's been producing. Although if he keeps taking air fights where he's so outnumbered, I'm pretty sure it'll all be for naught, and if his ASF keep getting caught like they are right now, it's going to be horrible. He thought the Mega was underwater, but no, in fact it wasn't. It was both getting shot by the Vespers. I'm assuming they stopped being conscientious objectors. Also, the Vespers died to the wreck of the Megalith, to its fall damage, and to these Spectre gunships. So that was a really nice play from Swkoll, and a really unfortunate situation for Tex there. Getting double dipped on damage. Monkey Lord emerging from the deep over here. That Monkey Lord from so long ago still not reclaimed. And the Monkey Lord going to continue to assault northernly. Although a bunch of Spectre gunships coming in. They will be taken out swiftly by the Air Force, but the Spectre gunship, the most bomber-like of all the gunships, comes in and drops a huge payload, instantly taking off 4,000 to 5,000 HP worth of health. Every volley is another 4,000 to 5,000 HP, so the longer that these ASF ignore the Spectre threat, is the longer that this Monkey Lord takes about 5,000 HP of damage every few seconds. Tsar coming down to the south. ASF numbers for Swkoll growing rapidly. He just needs to be a little bit patient. I'm sure he is outpacing his opposition's air production. Another Soul Ripper on the way. There's a Monkey Lord sitting up here with Texas Comm. As Tex has split up his air forces, which is a interesting situation for him. Could be in a bit of danger. Don't want to give your opponent bite. You can split up to try and get some pincer moves and some interesting plays, but it also can always result in you just separating your armies and air forces into bite-sized little chunks for your opponent to take on one at a time. And as we wait for some action to pop off, we're going to go ahead and speed it up about as much as we can. I'm sure +3 is about as far as I can go. We'll only go to +2. As I said, these players are running out of steam, and honestly, I am too a little bit. Eyes are glazing over with all of the units on screen. Is there anything showing up that we think can break this stalemate of a game? There's been some epic plays. There's been experimentals thrown back and forth and back and forth. It's like a game of tennis with these circles being tossed from one side to the other with this water being a net. The Tsar, a very beautiful experimental. A very devastating one if given ideal circumstances. Although a very fragile one, despite having that 40,000 HP and 30,000 HP shield. 70,000 in total, nearing 100,000 HP, and it can very swiftly be destroyed by just not even a huge wave of ASF, but 20 or 30 of them can deal with it. Another nuke being sent down here, and it does seem as though the anti-nuke was cleaned up, probably via the emissary, which is the first major thing I'm sure it's done in the entire game, is allow this nuke to land. Because it's been inaccurate at hitting the mass extractor itself so far. That nuke gonna land. How many kills on each of these nukes? 238 kills on this nuke alone, 100,000 mass killed. Whereas the nuke of Tech's not quite so effective. The ASF's fighting here in the middle. That's 3 Soul Rippers out on the field for Tex right now. But the ASF for Swkoll yet again failing him. Not quite able to mount enough ASF onto the field, even trying to use anti-air to his advantage to just get air control. And it's just been that story for the entire game. Tex has just been dominantly in control of the airs, whereas Swkoll's been in control of the seas. But the seas have not been so kind to Swkoll, as now Monkey Lords are coming through. There are cannons above sea level, able to fire with this very shallow ditch filled with water. As the combined assault of Tex, 2 Monkey Lords, 3 Soul Rippers, and a whole hell of a lot of ASF to protect him. The Tsar, under threat, could be going for a pass on the Tsar, instead decides to turn and take the air fight first. The Tsar going to fall back into the deepest recesses of the base it can imagine, and hope that the anti-air that's been built up over there across the course of this game, which I'm sure there's a lot of it, 21 of the T3 Transcenders, actually that's all of it, and that's not as much as I would have imagined. Soul Ripper's going to be cutting north. The economies have equalized, both player are around 500 mass a second, but now these Soul Rippers going to be coming through, trying to pick off any undefended mexes, and there's a lot of T3 mexes for them to chew through right here. Aren't you so glad there wasn't a UEF or Seraphim in this game? Seraphim would have just done this stupid Awasa bombing, and the UEF would have gone for fucking Novaxes. Instead, we get to the 2 superior factions in this cast, as the Soul Rippers manage to pick off some more T3 mexes. They can possibly come over here, maybe even threaten the anti-air battery over here. Oh, that's 15. I mean, they could kill it. It would just be very damaging. The Tsar trying to use its anti-air missiles, those cannons it's got, to cut down ASF at as much range as it can. As the 2 Monkey Lords over here make landfall. Hex says this game is a travesty, but now it's a travesty immortalized and enshrined on the Willow YouTube channel. And I'm sure Tex will be like, this was a horrible game, why'd you cast it? But that's what every pro player says whenever I cast them, because it wasn't a 15-minute stomp where they rolled over their opponent with no struggle. As the Tsar is going to meet a very unfortunate fate, while the Monkey Lords are facing something similar. The Spectre's going to deal a lot of damage. But of course the Monkey Lords probably have a much better chance at surviving and getting any kind of lasting damage down onto their opposition right now. And possibly come in and kill off this anti-nuke. Although when you kill off the mass extractors in the base itself with the Monkey Lord, who cares about the anti-nuke? One of the Monkey Lords detached and sent to the north, and it could get into this power grid. Swkoll has 28,000 spare power, but I'm sure he doesn't want to lose 10 T3 Pigeons. Don't know what the production on 10 T3 Pigeons is, but I am sure it is huge. As the Monkey Lord makes its way in, we'll probably go ahead and slow down the game. I didn't realize we were still on +2. And starts to kill off all these Pigeons. And these Pigeons are very expensive, so he's going to get a lot of veterancy. So even if he goes really low on HP, he's going to get 2 more ranks of veterancy very soon. As he continues to push forward. I guess I shouldn't call it a he. It is a robot. Shouldn't be giving genders to robots. She, it, gets another rank of veterancy at the last second. And it's going to be a very happy day. Swkoll probably having some power struggles. Went from 28,000 spare power to 3 to 7,000. This Monkey Lord completely cleaning up this base and going up to 4 ranks of veterancy. If it turns around and kills the SMD, it'll get up to 5. Does not quite decide to. Bricks, very veteran as well. All of them having 1 rank of veterancy. Some up as high as 4. As 2 more Monkey Lords are down here. I mean, this one was part of the original assault. There's another one down here with 2 ranks of veterancy. And it seems that the overwhelming number of experimentals out from Tex have managed to knock down Swkoll to the lowest point yet. He's 300 mass a second behind his opposition. Still, though, it is even with total mass generation with all of the reclaim flying around. Any given second, there's 300 reclaim worth of mass coming into the coffers of Swkoll. Tex, although not doing quite, he's spending all of his mass, and I can see why. He's building a Scathis at a right old clip. Oh, now I'm British. Building it at a right old clip, he is. He is, that he is. That's not a good British accent, but I'm tired. It's been an hour and 5 minutes of cast. Y'all can go judge me in the comments, please. I absolutely love reading comments that are like, you're horrible. This makes me laugh. Alright. Soul Rippers. Only 2 of them having ranks of veterancy, which means that their region is relatively pitiful. T1 PD built by an engineer that got here from some way, shape, or form. We're not sure. As the Monkey Lords approach the main base, I'm sure this will be cleaned up as Swkoll has a insane amount of Oblivions. He may fit 26 Seekers. Alright. Hell, let's even grab these. Across the map right now, 46 Seekers, 49 Eruptors, 69, nice, Oblivions, and 72 Transcenders. In this area alone, we can probably check it. Let's see, we have 55 Oblivions in the main base, 2 Mars, interesting, those are the T2 Black. 45 Transcenders, this is a very well defended base. The Oblivions alone are scary for this force. Although, I think the Monkey Lords outrange Oblivions technically, so you can deal with it. Strategic launch detected, don't know where that's going, but it's going somewhere. Going to the west, seemingly, maybe it's going after the Scathis, which is momentarily going to finish. Oh yeah, it's coming for the Scathis. Unfortunately for him, though, I'm pretty sure there's an anti-nuke loaded. This has 7 out of 7 loaded. This one doesn't have one loaded, so maybe it's an edge nuke. We'll have to see, but as this Scathis finishes, we will track its first volley. And yes, the nuke gets shot down. Go ahead and allow us to see what's going on across the map right now. There is a relatively large assault. This is the same assault from earlier, but it's gone into the water. It's trying to reposition using the water further northwards. Doesn't want to run into this PD battery if he can help it. As the Scathis finishes and gets prepared to launch its oh so devastating volley, and we get to watch as this volley falls down upon the opposition. Oh, well, that's a little bit anticlimactic. It doesn't go for the main base. Well, that's depressing. Come on, give me a volley that goes to the main base. Alright, here's the second volley. And we can actually, since it's the last shell in the volley, and it does seem to be going to the main base, we can get quite the astonishing view As the camera pans over and tracks, we're going to be getting more and more levels of detail as it falls through the sky. And we're going to see all of these shells landing in quick succession. And it's just going to be a brutal firing. Those shields holding for now, but they will not hold for long. Swkoll needs to come up with a solution, and he needs it now. He's trying to use gunships to deal with these two monkey lords, but I'm not sure if that'll work for him. It's been an hour and 7 minutes, and I think we've found our victor. I think Tex, the one who invests in the end-game technology, is going to become our victor of this game. That's a lot of SCUs now being produced by Swkoll, something I don't believe Tex even has done to this moment. He hasn't bothered with SCUs, he's just used good old-fashioned mass extractors and power generators. As Swkoll's base is left in tatters. Large swaths of T1 pigeons going down, showing you just how many were still in the base. As the Monkey Lords start to encroach on this territory, the heavy shield will almost assuredly mean that Swkoll will take a long time to die to the onslaught that will be produced by this Scathis. And I do believe it is over. I don't see how Swkoll can manage a victory. He's lost on every front except for maybe this northern one. And after an epic game of backs and forths, it is, of course, the player with air dominance, the player who is 3 1500s in a trench coat worth of APM, who is going to come out on top as the Monkey Lords make their way in. And there is pitifully little to stop them. Swkoll sends the comm out for holy combat as we reach towards a finality, a conclusion of this game. Where is that commander? It's walking through that pigeon right now. Whoa! And the commander goes down to the combined efforts of those Monkey Lords, and I would like to thank you all for watching. Thank you, the Patreons. Please consider joining the Patreon or channel membership, or even leaving a super thanks if you want to support the channel. Every little bit you all pitch in helps massively. Share the channel around, share these videos. Let's try and make FAF a bigger place with more people and more beautiful games played. You all are beautiful. I'll see you in the next one. This is Willow, signing off.